What's up, everybody? Coach Matt coming at you from the Broad Ripple Studio, and today we are talking all about base. And I'm going to cover three separate topics with you. Number one is how should you raise your base? How should you go about doing it? Two is the frequency, or how often should you expect to raise your base? And three is what's the expectation? How should it feel when you actually do go about raising your base? Now, before we get to all this, we all started the Transformation Challenge recently, and we all set out on goals. And we set these goals because we know that there's benefit on the other side. So before we get to this and potentially raising our base, let's give ourselves a reason to do that. Give ourselves a why so that we can help mentally when we're in those dark places in class to actually press through and hold on to this base that we're going to be looking for. The why behind it is many reasons. Number one, if you're holding a higher base effort, a higher average heart rate throughout class, you're going to build your endurance over time, which is going to make longer distances seem more manageable or feel more manageable. It's going to help your heart rate recovery over time and potentially help take off time from a event outside of the studio, 5K race, 10K race, whatever it may be that you're training for. Holding this number throughout class is training your body to be able to sustain that effort for longer. So again, building endurance. It's very crucial when we're talking about events outside the studio or things that we're aiming for, sporting-wise, to hold this base. Beyond that, when you're holding your base or you're raising your base, you're training your body's VO2 max, which is actually something that can increase. VO2 max, essentially in a nutshell, in layman's terms, is how your body is utilizing oxygen, how efficiently it's pulling the oxygen and delivering it to your muscles. And the more efficient your body is at that, the more efficient you are at actually holding an effort or an intensity for longer periods of time. Not to mention, higher VO2 max is directly correlated to longevity, or how long you live. So that's another reason to potentially raise your base. So now that we have some reasons behind it or some whys behind it, we can kind of set a goal. So think of a goal that you're looking for and lock in with that. Now that you got that, there are three components. Number one is how should we go about raising our base? So when we're talking about raising base, I'm going to go with an example right here with my beautiful handwriting on this whiteboard. Let's talk about Joe Schmo right here. He's got a base of 5'5". This guy's a runner, let's say. 5'5", and his push for a 2-minute push, or around that number, is at 7.5 miles per hour. So he's got a 2 mile per hour difference in his base and his push. Solid. He's probably getting up into the orange zone. Hopefully he's able to return and hold on to his base effort with that big jump right there. But if we're looking to increase our base effort, number one, when we increase it, we don't want to make a huge jump. Probably going to need to take some baby steps here to see if our body's ready for it and if it's something realistic that we can actually maintain and hold on to it in class. So let's say we try to add 0.2, or Joe Schmo right here tries to add 0.2 to his miles per hour on his base. So now it's 5'7" versus 5'5". We can't get in the mindset of raising our base and still holding the same push efforts. That'd be very tough to do. There's a common misconception with that. Oftentimes, again, the ego is built around the push effort or the high-end number and not the base. So what you can think about now when you raise your base is the ego number is your base effort. So you're building your pushes around your base. You're only going as far into your push as your base is going to allow. So now that you've committed, or Joe Schmo in this case is committed to 5'7", most likely his push is going to come down too. I like to call it the window between your base and your push. As you raise your base, the push is going to come down, at least at the start while your body gets used to it. So in this case, good rule of thumb, as much as you raise your base, your push is probably going to come down equally. So let's say in this case we added 0.2, we're going to take away 0.2 from Joe Schmo's push effort around that 2-minute mark. So he's got 5'7" and a 7'3" now. Everyone's different. I'm going to be different than you. The person on treadmill 13 is going to be different than us. So it's all about testing the waters here. And again, making small increment changes here or there. That's the how of going about raising your base. Think about that window and make the ego number, or the one that's like your focus, the base effort. So small changes, probably going to need to dial back on that push. And with a higher average heart rate, that might even influence your all out. But that's okay in the short term. Got to focus on that base. And if it's a goal of yours, got to lock in. Number two is the frequency. How often should we go about raising our base effort? We can't expect to do it weekly. That's just tough. There's too many variations in the workouts. There's too many styles of workouts here at OTF. which is great. We're training our bodies in different ways to press through certain things. If something's very tough in here, we should celebrate that moment because it's something that our body is not used to doing. You have to push yourself to get better, right? So frequency, we can't expect it to be too short. We got to think of something more so like 2 to 4 weeks. And that's a pretty broad range. But again, everyone's going to be a little different in where they're at in their fitness journey. Some of it is mental. You might have a mental block preventing you from bringing your base up to a certain amount and holding on to it in these blocks. It might just be about training your mind to understand how to hold on to it. Or for some of us, we need longer, or we need a shorter period of time to realize that we can actually raise it sooner than we think. So trying that 2 to 4 week range and kind of locking in, thinking I'm gonna conquer at least 2 weeks straight of workouts with this base before I even think about increasing. So kind of conquer some workouts, get it under your belt, build some confidence before adding on to it again. So 2 to 4 weeks, good rule of thumb in terms of frequency. Now lastly, we're talking about expectation. How should it feel? So obviously when you raise your base, your average heart rate is going to increase, or your amount of effort, let's say for example in a tread block, is going to go up over time. And that's something that we have to train our body with. So the expectation is not that it's going to be easy. The expectation is that it's doable. Doesn't even mean necessarily all the way manageable. Yes, we want to be in control of the entire block. That is of utmost importance. But doable is tough because if you're going from a push effort and a hill climb or a longer push effort and you're trying to come back down to your base on the other side, is it something that you're going to realistically be able to hold on to? Because number one rule of thumb on an endurance day or a strength day, especially because power days we're focused more on top end speeds or top end inclines, peaks and valleys. The endurance and strength days is, at least for joggers and runners, to jog or run the entire block. For power walkers, it's to maintain some sort of lower incline at those bases, always some form of incline all the way through the block. So we want something that's sustainable. And we've all been there. We've all gone so far into a push effort that we can't bring it back to our base suddenly, and we gotta take that walk or that full recovery in the middle of a block. So when we're raising this base, expect it to be tough, but also take heart in the fact that you're trying this for many reasons, like your why that we talked about at the beginning of this video, or the goal that you set out on. Lock in mentally with that and understand that you're allowing yourself, you're giving yourself some grace here with your push. If you're gonna hold this new base, your push is probably gonna have to come down. So when you go into a class, go in with confidence knowing that. You're gonna shrink that window because now you're training smarter, not necessarily harder in the end. So those are the 3 points to talk about how to raise it, the frequency and the expectation. Absolutely talk to us coaches in the studio. We would love to answer your questions. All of us love talking about base. It's a very personal setting that all of us have to kind of find over time. But as you raise it up, it opens so many doors in your fitness journey. It is so, so, so important. So hopefully this was helpful for you. We've got a lot more content coming at you, all surrounding base this week. And again, don't hesitate to ask us questions in the studio. But that's all I got for you today. This has been Coach Matt from Broad Ripple. Have an awesome rest of your day, y'all. See ya.